Welcome home. We are WNST, Tassel, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. No, I'm not growing a playoff beard. I'm just feeling a little vacation-y this week and a little sun and fun while the Orioles are in Los Angeles. Luke will be monitoring all things Orioles and Ravens cuts. We are going to be reinstituting the WNST tech service. I had a long chat with Bill Cole. I showed how the sausage was made around here with our long-standing and outstanding WNST tech service. We're going to be doing the show at Fadley's on Friday, and then 2 weeks from Friday as well. We begin this incredible journey on the 4th of September. We're going to be at Coco's. Mark Viviano is going to be working non-kayfabe with me on Labor Day week in advance of the Kansas City Ravens game, and we have a lot of things going on around here. And 26 oysters, 26 days, 26 ways. Jessica Vallis, this might be my last piece with the 25 cupcake. We're going to the 26 oyster crab soon. All of it brought to you by the Maryland Lottery. I have the Gold Rush Sevens doubles. I got to get those Ravens scratch-offs. I will have them in my hands by the time I get to Coco's on the 4th, I promise. And then on the 5th, it's oysters, and more oysters. We'll be at Fadley's on the 6th, kicking the whole thing off before another weekend of Oriole baseball. Some of these songs, this guy might even remember, you and your number one underneath the lights or in the sun, having fun together. Oriole baseball. There he is. Greg Abel is my guest. I wore my Geddy Lee shirt. I haven't shaved in a month. I'm eating peach cake this morning with you. And listen, the Orioles lost yesterday, and if they're listening next week, somebody'd say, yeah, they've been losing a lot lately, right? So we could bring this together, but we've been trying to get together and talk for a while. You own Abel Communications. You're a longstanding friend of mine. But I got to know you through Free the Birds. I don't think I knew you before September 22nd, 2006. My life certainly changed that day, and you made famously the Free the Birds, we're not going to take it video. And someone admitted a couple of weeks ago that they've watched it over and over and over and over again. And I think they put Dee Snider back in. I was trying to bring Dee Snider on when he played M3 to honor him for his role in that before they muted the video. How are you, man?
I'm great.
Doing your own Baltimore thing at Abel Communications.
Yeah. We run a local public relations firm. We work with a lot of the everyone from nonprofits to large healthcare organizations and professional services firms, helping them get the word out about their people, their product, their services. And so it's been a great run.
You help a beleaguered sports radio, washed up, a beleaguered sports radio show host who has been banned by both teams. It's amazing you've lived long enough to see me get banned from the Kevin Byrne press box. Like, that's an amazing. We've really come a long way here, haven't we, Greg?
Well, you said Free the Birds, but Nestor, I've been aware of you and your work since 1990s because you were doing NST when sports radio started emerging in Baltimore. I think you were probably the first that was all sports on the AM dial. And I was writing about sports business at the Baltimore Business Journal, and I think I interviewed you for a story back then. And then, and then some time passed.
I do remember that. I have that clip, and I ran across. I should have taken a screenshot and sent it over to you because when we were doing the documentary, I found that. And thanks to Steve Hennessy for that too. I did thank him. I thanked him personally, but for all that time, you know what I mean? Like, I remember sitting and talking about my career with you 27 years ago and what sports was then. And the Ravens were brand new when you worked there, right?
Yeah, Ravens were brand new. I don't even know if they didn't have their own stadium yet. Those are probably in the Memorial Stadium days. And so much time has passed, but then some things are still the same, right? Like, this is a town with a passion for its teams, and we've had some ups and downs. And obviously, the Ravens have been such a good story for Baltimore for the most part for the last 2.5 decades, and the Orioles have been at the lowest of the lows. And we're climbing, but haven't quite reached the top of the mountain here. But I'm staying positive about this season. I think I wanted to mention, you had mentioned they've been losing lately, and we all know that. The people who follow the Orioles closely, I think last year was a great season. They were 101-61, and as a fan, you had a journey of 6 months. Most of the season isn't the playoffs. It's what people tend to remember, but most of the season is the day in and the day out. And what happened last year was you had a team that was barely over 500 the year before that took the leap and went 40 games over 500, which is a big deal to win over 100 games. Probably How many times in the Orioles history have they done that, Nestor? Three?
Maybe three. Yeah, I mean they won 180, 81 or 80 and didn't get in the playoffs.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so maybe five. Who knows? But I mean, we could
Well,
look it up.
69 definitely, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I off the top of my head, yeah. I mean, 4 or 5. I mean, the '97 Orioles didn't win 100 games, and they were a really good team.
Right. 83 when we won the World Series. I think they won 96, 97, something like that. And so you had a team that
Look, it's
pitching.
rarefied air, and we've talked.
Yeah.
I mean, I sit here every day like you. You listen to my show. You follow. This isn't a. This is. We're not waiting for the good times. These are the good times.
That's right. That's right. That's kind of the point I was trying to make is that like it doesn't get a lot better than this. So even though like the team got off to a great start where they're, I don't know, 30 games over 500 in June or maybe 25, 6. And that was a really high winning percentage. And then, as we all know, the last 2 months have been 500 baseball, a little worse. But you did enough early that if you just win half until the end, you'll be in the playoffs. And then who the heck knows? Like Texas last year, they were a 91 and 71 team. They got hot, they won the World Series. So we could still do that. But my point is, life isn't about like the big moment. Often, life is about the day to day. And so this year's day to day has been a little less, I don't know, joyous than last year's day to day because we had more winning and it was like this immersion of like it's gonna happen. Like Gunner's good now and Adley's great and there's more where that came from because Jackson Holliday's like burning
Well,
his way
then you
through the
go into the
minors.
off season, you're like, oh, they're going to have a new owner, and Peter's dead,
Yeah,
and John's gone, and
right.
now and Elias might be able to go get Corbin Burns. He might be able to buy Zach Eflin. Like if you would have said to me, and think about that now. Look at how good Bradish was last year. And these things that now Means is coming back,
Yeah,
and we'll have Wells. He'll work out of the bullpen, and Kramer will be the fifth starter, and like without thinking about Suarez, without thinking about innings for Cade
yeah.
Povich,
Cade
which they
Povich. I
weren't
was about to
thinking
say
of
that.
in June, or Chase McDermott, or
Right.
like any of these, what they've done. And I think what we've learned, first things first, walk-off wins are more fun when they happen.
Yeah.
Come from behind wins are fun. A closer that sticks the bats up their ass, it's fun.
Right. And it has a
One
theme
run
song with the
wins.
lights going off
Yeah,
and
one
everything
run
else.
wins every night.
Right.
Chicks dig the long ball, lots of home runs. So there's all of that that was baked, and you didn't expect to win, right? So
Right.
when you don't expect to win, I went through this with Luke this week too. And Luke and I are getting together at Fadley's looking for like topicality, and you're giving me ideas here. Really, I would say the amazing part for Rubenstein, and I'm writing it because I'm a man of letters, Greg.
Yes, of
I'm going to be
course.
writing a David Rubenstein a letter, and just of what, and it's one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on is because we both held our nose at Angelos in 2006. Me famously, you documenting it, but all these years later, what do we expect from this guy? And we expect him to sign Zach Eflin. We expect him to have
Right.
the ability to go get Corbin. We expect him to dance on the dugout, and we expect him to give out hats and sit behind home plate for 3 straight days, in Queens. I don't know what we expect from him. And really, Arrighetti's going to be the guy that owns. This guy's 74 years old. You know what I mean? This guy's not. I don't think
Sure.
David Rubenstein's in this for the next 30 years, and he's a billionaire, and he'll get bored with it. I don't. First off, I'm a media member who's been banned, so I'll never sit with them and say, "Tell me how you love baseball. Do you watch the games every night?" I'm not sure what David Rubenstein knows about baseball or doesn't know, or where he's going to be involved, but it feels to me like they have a genius in Elias. They have a genius in Meidel. They have a competent manager in Brandon Hyde, no matter what you think about the bullpen. And they have these young players. To me, this is where a guy like you comes in and says, I'm a communications guy, I'm a PR guy. I want to have John Maroon and his people, different people, and saying, they need to grow this. There's still 20,000 people out. It's the same old white people there's always been. It's the same people that all wanted to come back,
Yeah.
except for me, where I'm back, but I'm not fully back, and I'll be writing a letter to Mr. Rubenstein. But the rest of the community and the price point and what they did to the Birdland members last week that pissed them all off, and I'm not one of them, but I know many of them. And I am a rewards member and airlines and Royal Farms, and I get discounts. I get a
Yeah.
free ham at
They,
Wise.
they
So
overcomplicated things.
yeah, so
They did.
the Angelos people are still running the team until Katie Griggs takes over. And I guess one of the reasons I want to have you on is say, okay, Katie Griggs calls you and says, hey, you made that crazy Free the Birds video with the wild man, the band
2006.
guy. So you were pissed off at Pete. Everybody's pissed off, Peter. The thing that I told Mr. Rubenstein's guy before he yelled at me and told me to shut up a dozen times was this. First thing I said to Chris Ullman, the Whistler, was there's been a lot of trauma here, bro. There's just been a lot of trauma here. Starting with Mike Flanagan, whose picture was over my shoulder by like some sort of weird. I didn't mean for that to happen. Mike Flanagan was right here, and Louis Aparicio was right here. It's on the club level where I chatted with this man. I said, "There's been a lot of trauma here. There's some healing that needs to be done above and beyond winning baseball with businesses who were offended. And I mean, I could list the list and name the names of the people over the last 18 years who watched your Free the Birds video and felt the way we felt in 2006. It's 18 years later. We're still here. I got a credit card. I love the team. I'm
Yeah.
there, but I'm not there because of the way I've been treated by the old group and the new group. And I'm thinking to myself, why haven't they connected? They're great. It's $65 to go. Why is it not packed or more packed except when they give out bobbleheads?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, isn't it? I think there's some of it that is legacy from losing for a long time, and there's some of it where society has changed and the sports world has changed and consumer sports consumption habits have changed. What I mean by that is the seat on the couch is a pretty good one. We all have beautiful flat screen TVs at home. You don't have to get in the car, drive downtown. The Baltimore perception is another one. There are people who live in Towson and Timonium who think going downtown is a scary proposition. Um,
It's funny you'd say
and
that because an hour ago, one of my insiders, one of a guy who's been managing me, my money, I'm
yeah,
not going to shout him out because he's a crazy Republican, but he knows I mean, he's a crazy, I mean, Harford County, the whole thing. Can't help himself but to like kid me when we get together about the city. He sent me a text. I swear I'll read it to you. I
yeah,
mean, like I was shocked. He's like, let's see, we're venturing down to the city this evening for the O's game. He said to
yeah,
me, and I'm thinking
right.
he wouldn't be venturing down to the city. He's not a country music guy, so I can't use Garth Brooks as an example. But I don't know what else would bring him to downtown Baltimore, given his Fox 45 viewing habits. And I guess he's a Sun reader now too. All of a sudden, but
Yeah,
it's not that liberal rag anymore. But it's the Orioles are bringing people back to the city
yeah,
in a
they are,
way
and
that
and
that you want them to. It's an important part of the city.
it is,
I did
and
Free the Birds because I thought it was the most important part of the city at the time.
well, it's certainly a fabric of our city. It's very iconic, and I have liked, in the last couple of years, we've seen Governor Moore tour the state, and one of the things he always says is, you can't have a thriving state if its largest city isn't thriving, and I've taken a lot of, I don't know, pride in that. I think he cares about Baltimore legitimately, not just because he's saying it because he thinks it's a good soundbite, which it is. It's because he believes that the largest city must thrive if he's going to be successful as a governor, and
I'm
that's
not
great.
sure Larry Hogan really believed that, and if I were to
No, he
ask him,
certainly didn't
I
act
would
that
say to
way.
him, defend that position. You're running to defend that position
Right,
because I never felt that way, and I'm Baltimore positive. This was my view for 19 years. I took a
right.
bath owning property in the city, watching the decay, watching the corruption, watching the just
Yeah,
the awfulness of the baseball team in my, in my world in 2006, looking out the window and seeing what was vibrant in the 90s with Mike Messina and Cal Ripken become tumbleweed blowing down camp. It freaked me out. So my
right,
civic movement was captured as a filmographer by you, in
right.
that I want a thriving Orioles because I felt like 3.5 million people coming to downtown Baltimore, including some people from DC back then,
Right.
showing us
Well,
off,
that's
showing
another
off
big
our
factor.
best side.
Yeah.
And we have so much to offer as a city. We
Well,
really
Nestor, here's
do.
the thing, right? Like, I think if in order to fairly analyze whether or not the Orioles are lagging as it comes to, attendance, people going to the games, performance on the field has been really good the last couple of years. You can't really complain about it. They haven't been great the last 2 months, but they're competitive. They have exciting young players. Like, what do you want in a baseball experience? They have at the stadiums. They're going to need some upgrades, but it's still Oriole Park. It's a great experience. The if you have to look, and I don't have these stats in front of me, but like, how do we compare to what's happening in Cleveland? How do we compare to what's happening even in I don't know, Milwaukee, right? They
But
have
attendance has gone from 19th to 18th. I mean, that's literally
that's
those are
where
the
we are.
numbers
Right.
and that was last week.
So
And
that's not very
every
good.
homestand it
Right.
changes. Here's where I am. It's $65 to go all month,
Yeah.
and if that's a price point with it that anybody could participate. Now
Right.
they want you down there like going to Merriweather for $5 to see Hootie and the Blowfish. They're expecting you to spend $18 on beer and stuff, and I'm not that
Right.
guy.
Me.
I
Right.
don't like being gouged anywhere. The
Yeah.
beer doesn't taste good when you spend that much on it.
No,
For
I
me,
agree.
I'm a Dundalk guy, and experientially, where I'm going to concerts, ball games, picking where I'm spending my money, and where young people, $18 for a 23-year-old is just it's a lot for me. But like I'm thinking, and the pickles experience across the street that people want, or
Yeah.
to your point, the home experience, but the experience of the team and the city, it needs to be full up when times are good. I think whatever
Yeah,
club it is,
I
and
think you
they're
make a
going to
good
paint
point.
over upper deck seats and make the stadium smaller. They're going to do that.
I think times have changed. I don't know. I mean, I only live in this city, right? I do remember growing up when the Orioles were good in the 70s and 80s when it did feel like more of a topic of ongoing conversation of everyone. And maybe that was just like my brain then. Like I thought it was such a big deal. But you'd be driving, like, for example, if you're driving around town or you go to a sports bar, is a better example, and the Orioles are playing and it's a random Wednesday and they're in Toronto. Is the game on and are people paying attention?
That went
Kinda.
away. There was a
Kinda.
generation where that just went away. Right.
Yeah, like that is not really the vibe. You know what I mean? Like where it is the vibe, maybe. I don't know if it's the vibe in other places. I only live here. But like just like capturing the imagination, attention, and excitement of an entire region, even though we've been good and even though we have generational players who are young and it's going to be exciting, I think that is not quite there. And there's
Well, the
work to
people
do.
outside the baseball that watched Angelo, the other 90% that don't care about the Orioles, not the 200,000 people or whatever that number is. I mean,
Right.
make it up 300,000. It's not 1.9 million in this area, maybe
No.
worldwide, maybe whatever. They have that brand and followers on Twitter. They're not a big baseball brand as brands like Yankees, Dodgers, on and on
Right.
and on. Worldwide brands like the Mariners, who own Japan because of Ichiro, like just
Right.
there's it's a big world, right? I mean,
Yeah, that's
and
right.
so for the Orioles to grow their brand beyond being the Cincinnati Bengals of baseball, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
and they're a
Exactly.
regional franchise, and they have this illustrious, wonderful history that
Well, and
hasn't
a
done
full
anything in
third.
25 years. They haven't had a legendary player here since Cal Ripken. He went into the Hall of Fame 17 years ago. So,
Right.
like,
Right.
they haven't had a legendary player here where the Ravens, the juxtaposition again, as we get ready for this, not
Yeah.
only do they have Lamar right now, whatever you think of Kyle Hamilton or these players, Ray Lewis,
They're the
John
brand
Ogden, Ed
names, right?
Reed, Joe
Gunner's a brand name,
Flacco.
Nestor,
Yeah.
right? Wouldn't you say Gunner's kind of a brand name guy coming up?
No. I'm not. Don't play don't play the defensive role. I'm simply saying
Oh, that it hasn't been there,
everybody like you and me that's always loved baseball, that
right?
watched Rio Ruiz play third base on a Tuesday night in July when the team's 31 and 68, right?
Yes,
Like
yes.
literally all of that's
Guilty.
okay. Guilty, right? I do sports radio. We're we're in the club, okay? It's like the Democratic National Convention. Yeah, there's 20,000
You're like a
people there. You're
baseball
all in the
nerd.
club.
Yeah.
It's like people am I watching that? I already know how I'm voting. I don't need to get rah-rah'd. You want to rah-rah me? Bring Sammy Hagar in. Let's go to that'll rah-rah me.
Right.
But for me with the Orioles and outside of the penetration of smart people like you and me that were very offended by Peter Angelos, by everything about all of that and the way it was run, offended because you can't get the games on Masson, offended because you had a bad experience, offended by the price, offended by the city, like whatever that is that they have to overcome beyond the arrogance. And this is where I'm going to be writing to Mr. Rubenstein. How are you going to roll, dude? And I already know the answer to this, which is sad, but I already know the answer. But the arrogance of being this, and this is for Katie Griggs too. How you have people like me, you have to heal and start to get my money. You have my attention. I watch the games. You're going to
Right.
charge me $679 like football to have the games next year? Then guess what? My wife will say we're not getting baseball. If it's $700 for a baseball season ticket on TV, we probably just won't have. It's a lot of money, right? But you would say, "Whoa, we amortize that. It's only $50 a month." So you could sell it to me however you want, but they have to figure out how to make money so they can afford Gunnar Henderson. Because I'm with you. I love Gunnar. I love Adley. I love them all. Now, how are we going to pay for them? Drawing 22,000 people and $65 a month for anybody that can come, and they're still not coming. Like, they have to figure this out, and it has to be people that have never heard of the Orioles, who used to maybe think
Yeah.
something about
Some of
baseball, because their
maybe,
penetration, everybody knows who they are
yeah.
and what they do. Then you choose to participate or not.
Well, this is where the stadium upgrades might come in, Nestor, because we might see them create experiential things at the stadium. I don't know. I'm not privy to any of those things, but like, what is there? I think it's $600 million available to for stadium enhancements on both the Ravens and the Orioles side, and I think we're going to see that this season in the Ravens. They've made some improvements, and with the Orioles, you have to make it a destination. I'm visiting a friend in Colorado over Labor Day weekend. We're going to go to the Orioles at the Rockies game, and we were talking about he grew up here and lives in Denver. And I was asking, well, does anybody go to Rockies games? They're terrible this year. He goes, yeah, because there's so many people in Denver who are from somewhere else, and they just go to games as an experience, or they go to see their hometown team. And going to downtown Denver is like a fun night out, as is going to the game. So we need that pivot a little bit where just going downtown and being a part of the stadium experience is a fun night out, whether you're passionate about the Orioles and know who's coming up in the minors, or you're just kind of there to have a beer and watch a game. And so that second crowd is really that's what's going to pivot the numbers. People who are just casually, maybe they live downtown, maybe they live anywhere in the region, but they
But do they
feel
come
like going
back?
to a
If
but
going to an Oriole game is something I only do once a year, you better have a whole lot of people
you have a lot of
to
people,
support
yeah.
that, right? So
Right.
what you want them to do is say, I went on opening day and I can't wait to go back. But I think the fan base they have now has been it's very clear. They wait for the bobblehead night.
Yeah.
They're a freebie crowd. And
Right.
I'm Dundalk, dude. I mean, come on, like I
But if it
what
works, it works. I mean, maybe I'm sure you could do the math, whatever it costs for a bobblehead or a t-shirt. That brings out 15,000 more people, and you add that to the ticket sales and the concessions, I'm sure it's worth doing. So we might just see more of it until it doesn't work anymore.
you add it to the ticket price. You pay $5 for the bobblehead, and you charge $5 more for the ticket. You
Yeah.
call it a premium event. It's a Saturday night, and it's baked into your cost. I mean,
Right.
they've never, and with this dynamic pricing, they scalp
Yeah.
their own tickets on opening day. They're going to scalp their own tickets in the playoffs.
Right.
That's Billy Joel scalping everybody's scalping theirs.
Right. I mean,
Taylor
it's not
Swift. I mean,
unique.
come on.
It's not unique to the Orioles. This is where the industry has gone, which is why I think some people are turned off by that. Not just the Orioles, but going to a concert or going to any game. And so they
Well,
say,
which is
well,
why when there's 20,000 empty seats on a Tuesday night and Houston's in
yeah,
town, you say, "What's the value of that seat?" I'll give you $5 for it, dude. Okay, I'll stay home and watch the game on TV then. You know
yeah,
what
or
I
you
mean?
could
Like,
go,
so
yeah,
there's the bargain night that people used to take advantage of, and the student nights on Friday night that turned into being drunken unruliness with young people, and Angelo sending in the police with the badges for the beer in the upper deck, carting all my drunk 30-year-old buddies then 20 years ago. But you don't want that either. You don't want disco demolition night. I guess my question is, and this is really, I should bring you on. You should wear Mr. Rubenstein's hat, and I should dress you up and just literally ask those questions and say, so what is a thriving? What does it look like when it's thriving? What's the television part of it look like? What's the online part of it look like? What's the ballpark look like?
yeah,
What's the shoulder part of the ballpark look like? And how do you get there? And where's the model
right.
for this?
Yeah, I mean, you need partnership with the city, and it's gonna look. I mean, we're still in the honeymoon phase. This guy closed on the team this season, Nestor. So let's give him a minute, right? I know you're interested in making sure your voice is heard, and that's your right. I do think we owe it to the new ownership to give them a little time to put their stamp on things. They entered this season that it was already in motion. That as you pointed out, the staff that was there from prior ownership is largely in place. And so if change will be made, it wasn't going to be made year one. They weren't going to upend everything that was happening when the season was just about to begin. So we might see change over the off season into next season. And I think a little time is warranted in this scenario.
Well, well, hey, I'll give them all the time they need. I mean, I'm just literally saying, what do we want as a community? What do
Right.
we expect as a community from this guy who clearly egotistically likes being out in front of it, likes making TV commercials with Cal Ripken, likes handing out hats. His buddy Arrighetti brought a film crew to show him buying beer for everyone and getting it on the internet in 30 seconds. I mean, these are billionaires, right? So they have
Right.
people, and but they feel like they're not going to live here, and this isn't going to be Larry Lucchino walking the bricks of Highlandtown trying to get people to buy season books. And I don't know where their upside is beyond selling the uniform to T-Row, selling the stadium to a bank.
Yeah.
Like, whatever they're going to do to modernize that corporate revenue. The one thing I know from how many times I sat in Dick Cass's big office and the big oak thing, and I would sit in there with him, and we'd sit at a little side table, and he would always say to me, "We have no Fortune 500 companies here. All the
Yeah.
Black and Deckers and the McCormicks and the under like these companies that would fund like the way beer funded the St. Louis Cardinals, right? Like there has to be a real buy-in in the community, and the juxtaposition of the Ravens is perfect because the Ravens have owned the souls of the community here,
Oh yeah.
despite
And
Ray
so has
Lewis in
the
a
NFL
jumpsuit,
over
despite
MLB.
Jamal Lewis,
Yeah.
despite Ray Rice, who's now
Yeah.
revered and player. Like, they've won championships. They've had legendary players. They've
Yeah.
always had a chance to win. They've always had great players. They've always had black players, white players, kickers, special teamers, coaches, people out in front of it, doing bar nights. They're involved in charity. The Ravens have been immersed here to win the spirit of people. And if the Orioles are happy having 20,000 people out there, then the payroll will reflect
Yeah.
what our community can do for them. And
Well,
I
it's
think that's the reality of the math.
my thought is it's not one thing. Like, yes, on Tuesday night it's kind of a lame crowd, 20,000, even to see a good team like the Astros. But when you do the bobblehead and it's Saturday night, then they do get 40,000 and the place is buzzing, and they're doing that 4 o'clock Saturday thing, which has been a huge success. So it's not one thing. It's not that there's like, oh, they're only drawing 20. Sometimes they draw 35. I think this team, the on the field performance is going to matter. You can't, we want to see Rubenstein sign these these great players to long term deals, but there are many examples in sports, and you only need to look at the team we just lost 2 out of 3 to the Mets, who have the highest payroll in baseball, I believe, or at least one of the highest, and haven't been winners. So you have to run a really high quality organization with consistency, and you got to communicate with your community. You got to partner with your city. So there isn't one thing. It's not, and I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt for quite some time, given the excitement and the positivity they've brought to our city. And I'd like to see the team, make a run in the playoffs. That'd be a lot of fun. You're asking, like, what do we want, Nestor? I think we want to feel good. We want to go down there and feel like we're not suckers. We want to feel like this is a good team and we're part of a thing that other people care about. You want to go down there with your family and say, I'm going to the O's game. And you don't want people to look at you like, why would you do that? You want to be like, yeah, I want to go too, So I think we're on a path toward that, and we're not quite there yet. Like, that's where I think we're at.
I think that was like one of the great last 45 seconds on my airwaves this year. We want to feel like we're not suckers. We want to
Yeah,
feel like you're invested and we're invested.
that's right.
Um,
That's what we want.
yeah,
And you
that
don't feel like
hey,
that Ravens, look, it's once a week. It's very different dynamic, so people do pay $150 to sit in a pretty good, decent seat, because it's once a week. It's like an explosion of energy that's built up over the course of a week, whereas the day in, day out nature of baseball is very different. So anyway, maybe I should have stopped
you can
talking.
feel disappointed with the Ravens, but you feel satiated even when they run the ball 3 times in an AFC Championship game, even when Billy Cundiff misses a kick, even when
Right.
Lamar gets hurt and the season goes to poop, right?
Don't
I mean,
say those
like,
things.
no, but
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you always feel like you're not being duped as a Ravens fan. You
Correct.
know what I
And
mean? You
I
feel like
haven't felt duped as an Oriole fan in the last 3
I,
years. Like,
yeah, but over the amount of time and money in your lifetime that you've invested in the Orioles,
right.
they owe you. They're upside down.
Yeah, there were some
And
dark years.
Rubenstein should know that. Rubenstein
That's
better be
right.
aware of that.
The context matters, I think, is the point. That's right. That's
Well,
right.
and also you know where the context really matters when you're out trying to get $100,000 from a bank, or when you're out trying to do business
Yeah.
locally, or when a fan says, next month I have X amount of dollars to spend Y on sports and beer. Am I going to go to the Ravens Raiders game, or am I going to save that money for an Oriole wild card game? I don't know, but
Yeah,
this
it's
was all the conversation last year, because
right.
I don't know if you know this, Greg, but there's only so much money to go around for rock
Correct.
stars,
And
for
time.
Beyonce, for dinners out. I've seen some businesses struggling this summer, restaurant businesses down in a lot of places. I'm hearing that. I mean, Bidenomics and like the election, everybody's taking a position and all that. But the reality is, we all want the Orioles to go to the World Series, right? You want to go, right? I
Right.
bet you want to go to a World Series game, right? I bet you
I would
do.
love to.
You'd like to go to 2 or 3, I bet, right?
We're
What's your
gonna need
budget?
it. We
What's your
need a
budget
better
on that?
bullpen for that, but
Yeah, what's your
yes.
budget on that, bud?
I don't know. I mean, it would
Yeah.
be
How
high.
much money will the Orioles cost you in October if you want to go to 4 games? You want to go to one wild card, one ALDS, one
Right.
ALCS, and one World Series game. I've already got you for that. If you get in the front door the right way, you're already at about $1,500 for you. Now you want to take your
Oh,
kid.
right. And then if I'm gonna bring my son or
So if
family,
you're
yeah.
talking about who can feel welcome with that, maybe you can. And maybe you take nice vacations, and I have too, right? I'm a Dundalk guy that's traveled the world. People think, oh, great. But and I go to concerts and they all think I sit in the front row and pay 500. I don't. I am a cheap MFer in that way, and I attach the value to it.
Right.
And I remembered last year when the ticket books were coming out, I had lifer Dundalk friends who love the Orioles, who have 13-game plans, who are Birdland members that take advantage of the free soda in the club level, because I went with my friend Melanie, and she said to me, sadness in September. I was there for the clinch game with her. And she said to me, I can't afford playoff tickets. I won't be able to come. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking to myself, well, I mean, right off the bat, the people that are going to the playoff games are only the people that can afford it. And more than that, it will be expensive here in October. So there is only a finite amount of money. And these two teams now are really going to have a legitimate battle over that money, because the Orioles is sort of said, we're the Orioles. You want to come. We're in last place first, whatever. The Ravens tried harder. PSLs. I mean, all the cost of entry to the Ravens in the 90s, ridiculous, right? I mean, Angelos pointed at them and said, PSLs? You have
Yeah.
my season ticket. You don't have to pay me for the right to come. You know,
It's a very
so
different product. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it's a very different world for a 24-year-old, for your kids
Sure.
who want to stand on a deck and drink beer watching the games, or watch it on their phone, or bet on it, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know the future. I'm asking Mr. Rubenstein and Mr. Arrighetti, what's this going to be over the next 10 years as you see it as a mature product, because we're on the road to that. And part of the mature product is, you better sign somebody for $50 million a year, and we better figure out how to pay for it, because it's not going to be
Right.
massive.
Yep, that's the truth. And I think what we want to see in this fall is such an important sports season. So hopefully, Nestor, we have a team in the Orioles that can make a little playoff run, and the Ravens keep bringing the pride to the city. And it'd be wonderful to see them succeed as well. And people, by extension, start feeling better and better about going to downtown Baltimore, so the businesses and the communities can thrive. I mean, that's sort of maybe I don't mean to be Pollyanna. That's just sort of all these things are connected. And so
That's why
that,
they're here.
yeah,
If I were sitting with Mr. Rubenstein on a second glass of wine, I'd say, you talk about philanthropy. That's what you said. You bought a $1 billion team to sell it for billions more and make money while you're here and enrich $1 billion, but it's a philanthropy. If you really believe that, tell me how this is going to make the city better. It's only going to make the city better if it thrives. And it hasn't
sure.
thrived in so long that I'm not sure anybody knows how to turn that spigot back on. I
Well,
mean,
right.
it was only
And
turned
he's
on once. Larry Lucchino turned that on. And you know how he did it? He went out and shook people's hands like a politician and said, I need you with us.
right.
Not
And
right. I
that's what
mean,
has to happen with the new ownership in the Orioles leadership, because it's not going to be Rubenstein. It's going to be the people he hires. It's going to be the team. Like, he's a private equity guy. He owns it, and then he puts leadership in place, and they do it. And so that's what we'll see. So I do think things are headed in the right direction. And it's always been an emotional tie for me to be down there. It's a memory factory, right? Like, my wife was joking the other day, we're looking at like the memories of our kids growing up, and one's in second year of college, the other's a senior in high school. So It's a bittersweet time for us because these transitions are happening, and we look back at memories we have, and there are a lot at ball games, and that's what these things are. It's nostalgia, it's memories, it's family, and so I think that's why it's so important to me and for many others. So we'll see how it plays out.
Do you remember where you were when Tito Landrum hit the home run? Do you remember where you were when Mike Devereaux, like we all have, that's the thing we share, right? As baseball fans, whether they hate me on Twitter or love me, or especially if they're my age. Um, Jim Palmer's not some old fogey guy to me. He's the guy I used to go out and see pitch in 1974. So this and Ben, I mean, the broadcasts are great. I mean,
Yeah,
Ben and
they're
Jim
fun.
Palmer. There's
Yeah,
so much
Kevin
kayfabe
Brown's
going
funny.
on.
He's very talented. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much kayfabe in the media, and I'm going to be talking to Mark Viviano about them, to be writing about that, as I'm the banned one now. Everybody, Jerry Coleman, everybody else can get in
Nestor,
except
that's your
me.
brand. You don't want them to let you in. You want to complain about being banned. That's your whole thing.
You think that's what I want my thing to be?
I don't know.
Really?
I don't think you want to be banned, but I think it gives you a platform from which to operate. You're like, I'm the band guy, and
Nah,
therefore I'm gonna.
nah, nah,
No,
nah,
you don't
nah,
want that.
nah, 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 nah.
You're like, I'm too
No.
hot for them to handle.
No, I mean, I'm going to be writing about this because at heart, I love the Orioles, right?
I know. Yes, I do know that.
At some point in my life, wouldn't I like them to love me back? I mean, seriously, would
I
that
think so.
not love me back? How about just let me in and let me do my job? You don't have
Right.
to love me.
That seems fair.
Like I already, I've already given my whole life to this, right? So I can do it from the outside. I'd rather, this is what I told the Whistler. I said, listen, I'm not going to come down there and be mistreated on a daily basis. So
Right.
people have asked me, from the time Peter died and the team got bought, it was all happened quick, right? Like, team was going to get bought in January, Peter died March 20 something, and 5 days later there's opening day, the bridge collapsed, all of this. People were asking me on opening day, as I'm walking through the club level, literally, they're going to let you in, right? I mean, they can't, like, so people are asking me, and I'm like, I mean, I guess. I mean, I don't know. And they said to me, well, you'll go every night, right? And I'm like, depends on how they treat me. I'm 55 years old. I'm not going to go
Yeah.
down there and be sneered at by everybody. I dealt with that with the Ravens, and they were commanded to sneer at me. They were told to sneer at me. And my life is better 2 years later. My company's not better. My access isn't better. My coverage isn't better for the fans. Maybe John Harbaugh's life's better because he doesn't have me asking why Lamar ran the ball 21 times and is going to play in 4 days and then not want to answer it. But at the end of the day, as a fan, as a business, you should want me in that locker room on your behalf, knowing at least if there's a tough question to be asked,
Yeah.
I would ask it, and not at the fear that they would throw me out if I ask it. And I'll be honest with you, the last few years with the Ravens when I was in there, every time I ask a tough question, I thought they're going to want to throw me out for this. At some point, they might because they seem Chad Steele was always a guy who was capable of throwing me out and did. So
Mhm.
I mean, so for me, if that is the expectation that you can't look, we're 1 year out on Kevin Brown being banned from doing his job for
Oh,
reading off of
right.
Chiron.
No,
So
that whole thing was
so the
ridiculous.
kayfabe part of what you're getting and what you're getting at Ravens.com or Orioles.com, and what you might be getting at Pressbox or the Banner or the Sun, all of it is, if you ask the wrong question, we'll throw you out. If we don't like you, we'll throw you. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah,
That's
that shouldn't be the
crazy.
culture
That's
shouldn't be that
crazy.
way. Correct. You should have the space to ask a difficult question. The coach doesn't have to answer it, but he has to acknowledge it. And look, I
And if
think
they
one of
throw me out and ban me, they should tell you why instead of having you ask me why it happened.
well,
That's insane.
and this is a symptom of the modern era where Nestor. It's not like there's the daily paper, the radio, the TV, and that's it. There's the internet, and there's the team and the apps and their own owned media. And so, I think what has happened over the last 30 years, I'll call it, is that because the team has its own media mouthpiece, they have their own. Hey, you want to know what's going on with the team? Just go to the website. We'll tell you. We'll send you alerts. We'll go to the mobile app. Do all those things, and we'll control the message. And so the idea that journalists come in and ask questions that are off topic for what they think they want to talk about. Coach will make a face at you if you ask about an injured player, if you ask about why he ran the
Chad
ball.
Steele directed in the middle of a post game in Chicago with
Yeah.
5 reporters asking why Lamar wasn't playing that day when he practiced, and gamblers gambled on it, like him playing,
Uh,
and he scratched out in Chicago, and reporters were asking. Chad Steele said, don't you want to ask some questions about us winning the game? Stop the media in the press conferences says, don't you want to ask questions about us winning the
I
game?
think he's doing his job because he's trying to steer the conversation.
That's poor. You know why
Yeah,
he's not doing his job, Greg? I'll stop. Full stop. I've
yeah,
been doing this 40 years of my
right.
life. I've been in press conferences hundreds of times a year. I've never seen it done. I've never
Well,
in
did
my
it
life
happen? Was it?
seen
He's
a
allowed to express his opinion. Like, can we ask a few questions about the game? But that doesn't mean that's what happened. Did it happen?
he tried to redirect questions in the middle of a press conference. I've
Yeah.
never seen anything like that at a post game in my
All I'm
life.
saying,
In my
Nestor, is
life.
that like he can say that what actually happens or happened or how they handle it is what matters. In
Well, I
other
had my
words,
press pass taken away after that.
yeah. Well,
So
there you go.
there you go. I mean, I don't know what else to say, like,
Right.
and for me, I have to answer to that every day of my life, right? I walk the
Well, the thing
streets
I
and people
want
say,
fans to know is there is a difference between the journalism of the Sun, whatever you think of the Sun, the Banner, WNST, WFAN. They are independent journalists who are trying to do a good job by giving you a story that is, they're not just going to take what the team tells you and regurgitate it without some element of analysis. But when you are writing on behalf of the team and you're employed by the team, and the Orioles announcers are a little bit of an example here. They are employed by the Baltimore Orioles. So there's a line they don't quite cross in terms of criticism of the team. And that is where the media comes in. And that is why America is a great country, because we have the First Amendment and you're allowed to criticize. But yes, I would see from your perspective where that felt and probably was heavy-handed. I'm not going to deny that. I'm in the communications business, Nestor. So the reason I reacted the way I did is because a lot of times our clients ask us to put out a certain message into the world, and then how that's received and what people say about it is part of the
yeah, but
dynamic of.
in the era of social media, in the
Yeah,
era where anybody can yelp and anybody can say anything, I get playing defense. I get playing offense. I
yeah,
also get in my industry for 40 years what was acceptable as professional. And when
yeah.
you at the Baltimore Business Journal, what was expected as professional for the community and front facing the community is the bar has moved dramatically.
Yeah,
The bar has moved dramatically to the point where, to your point, you just said, well, Ben McDonald and Brown work at the pleasure of Mr. Rubenstein and the Orioles, and at the pleasure of Greg Bader and Brandon Hyde.
that's
And
just a fact.
that's a fact.
Right.
Same with Rock Kabako, who 20 years ago argued with me, as did Amber Theo Harris, as to whether they really worked for Mr. Angelos or not. They disputed the fact that Peter Angelos was their boss. And I'm like, stop. Just stop.
There's a
That'd be like
line they
Amber going
certainly
to
can't
NFL and
cross.
saying
Right.
Roger Goodell's not my boss. He is. And so are the other 32 owners of the teams. So I'm
Yeah.
not owned by them, right? And I will never be owned by them. And at one point, I thought I wanted a gig at the NFL Network. I thought I wanted Viviano's gig,
Right.
and I'll laugh with him next week about that. But that that is my competitive advantage is being thrown out. And the only way I'm going to be allowed in is under my rules, which are I can ask what I want. You can't threaten to throw me out when I ask legitimate questions. And if you're not willing to have legitimate questions and just send Garrett Downing in, send your Orioles.com people in,
Right.
sit on the lounge, because the lounge isn't what I did at the barn. And the audience should probably figure that out. But I don't think young people didn't have real media, right? So I think
Correct. So that's the
they
context
don't
that
know the
sometimes
difference.
is missing, that it's all the same, that the guy tweeting or the guy doing a post on Instagram and then the reporter at the Sun and then the reporter, quote unquote reporter who works for the team are like the same. It's the media and it's not. And so I don't know, like this is a whole other
Well,
topic.
the media is not coming back, clearly. If I'm the last guy left that doesn't work for anyone who has fealty to the team, because to your point, and this speaks for Luke, you work at their pleasure. If you're there,
Yeah,
clearly even if it says media, independent media, you're there working at you have access at their pleasure. You can
that's
only
right.
ask questions at their pleasure that they approve.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's not
To
good. They just get
to
six
a
hundred
point.
million dollars of money to make the press box smaller, send it to the moon, put Kevin Burns' name on it, and take our money and build something that they have $40 drinks in now instead of $30 drinks. So
Yeah.
there is a point where when you're taking public money, you should be able to, when you say you're transparent, be transparent. You know.
Well, time will tell, Nestor. I do think we're in a new era. I think that, look, all things considered, we are in a better place as sports fans here in Baltimore than we've been in many, many years. And so I
And
do
we've
want
given
to,
them a lot of money to fix the stadiums to
yeah,
make the next 20 or
yeah.
30
So
years
let's,
awesome.
I would love to lean
Let's
into
go
an
have
era
parades. Let's
of
go do
winning and
things the right
pride.
way. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about all this with you, Nestor. It's always a good,
Tell me what you
back and
do.
forth.
Other than fight with me on the internet and shoot cool videos. I mean, when I think of you, I think of like crisis management. I think of getting the word out. I see all of the great companies you work with in trying to speak for a brand, because brands don't speak for themselves, right?
Yeah, what we try to do is enhance the message that a company has and reach new audiences through social media, through media relations, through content, through awards, speaking engagements. And so, for a company, whether it's a law firm or a healthcare firm or a not for profit, what we'll do is we'll meet, we'll talk about what do you want to be known for, and we'll distill that down to a couple of key messages. And then we take those key messages and we get them out into the world in different ways. That might be making a video, it might be having a press conference, hosting a special event, hiring a spokesperson. And so all these are things that PR firms do. The world, like we've been talking about with the sports world, the communications landscape, because of social, because of digital, because of mobile, has really changed. But what remains consistent is telling a great story, kind of understanding what makes people pay attention, what makes a company or an organization stand out. And so accentuating those things in a way that's positive and proactive. And that's where our company fits in.
I had this on my desk. It's love is the key. I don't even know. My wife said, "Where'd you get this?" And I said, "I don't know." But like having somebody like you on who's a brand manager, the best brand message I ever heard was a guy at Saatchi and Saatchi. Brian Billick and I were doing this symposium in New York like 15 years ago, and you should write this down and Google this because it's great.
Yes, sir.
This will be for everybody. Love marks. Love marks. It is when your brand is loved and respected on the
Okay.
axis, excuse me, of this, you know, you use it, you like it, you love it, you respect it, you demand it. And that's when, the Orioles and the Ravens are a love mark for Baltimore. We
Yeah,
should
there's
all
people with
love them.
tattoos on their legs with the Oriole bird and the Ravens, and it's like, you want it to be Harley Davidson and I don't know what's the most popular brand, like Nike and Coca-Cola, where it becomes iconic and it becomes kind of like part of people's lives. And so that's a high bar. I don't
I,
get it. That
I was once assaulted by the Oriole bird. But that like, and you laugh at that, but and then they didn't pay me the 30 grand. It was lovely. 2 decades later, Greg Abel, still my friend. He's at Abel Communications. He fights with guys like me who make no sense at all, and he tries to make sense for the world at Abel Communications. So go check him out, and also
thank you,
go to
Nestor.
YouTube and check out the "We're Not Going to Take It"
Yeah,
video.
we're gonna have to link to that.
It was your finest work. It really
I
was.
I might have peaked at that moment. So, but listen, thanks for being the inspiration for such a iconic. Listen,
uh,
Nestor, I know we're wrapping up. I'll say one last. Do I have time for
we're
a
on your
really
time,
short?
not mine. I'm eating peach cake and drinking Rofo
All right,
coffee. So
and yeah,
enjoy
let's
yourself.
wrap up after this. But I'll say when I did the video, because I come from a journalism background, as we've talked about, and I brought my camcorder out to that game. Not my phone, by the way. I like a camcorder you hold with a
Well,
mini
that's
D.
why I've been harsh with you in this segment, because you do come from a journalism background, and I shouldn't have to bullshit you.
No,
You know what I mean?
that's
Like I
right, and I
shouldn't have
like the
to.
back and
Like
forth, and
literally.
I'm willing to kind of go there with you because I enjoy it. The interviews I was doing were kind of man on the street type stuff, as if I was like from a TV station. I was just like a dude with a camera, and back then, if you were a dude with a camera, you stood out because not everyone literally had a phone camera where they were like doing this all day at
You look
everything.
like a documentarian in that
Right.
moment,
It
in
looked
that
like it
time
had a
frame.
legitimacy. And so one of the people I interviewed was from the museum industry, and he's in the clip. And I said to him, why are you here? Why is this important to you today? And he said, because this stadium is a reservoir of memories. We come here to create memory. And I am sad that this has become a place that less people go to because it's not as fun when you lose for 12 seasons in a row, whatever it had been at that time. And that phrase, a reservoir of memories, of always stuck with me from that day, because that is what it is. Like I was saying before with my family, like you come there and then those are the pictures you look back on. So there's a massive responsibility these organizations have to deliver a product that's prideful for our community, because like that person said on the video, it is a reservoir for memories.
You know what I love about modern times is I'm recording you, and then we have this little Otter transcript that comes out. I'm just going to steal your stuff. Your
I
PR
it
shined
was
up. I'm getting $500 an hour advice here for free. So I'm going to shine it all up, put my name on it on column this, and I'm going to make it part of the letter to Mr. Rubin. I mean, a reservoir of memories. You have a massive responsibility, Arrighetti. Do you understand that? So
right.
I'm going to go all sort of Ned Beatty and network is what I'm going to do.
You lost me, but
You know
okay.
what? You haven't seen Network?
I don't remember it. I mean, is that like we're mad as hell? We're not going to take it anymore. I can't
Yes,
remember.
but this is where Ned Beatty sits in the boardroom and
Yeah.
does to him what Chad Steele has tried to do to me and what the Whistler did, which was basically, I own you. We're the
Okay.
corporations. The
Yeah.
corporations own you. He was the TV executive telling his guy, we don't talk like that on our network. You know what
Right.
I mean? So literally at that
Right.
point. So this massive responsibility you speak of, it's true.
Yeah.
And it should
Yeah.
never not be respected. It should be their lead. Their
Yeah.
lead is they're billionaires. They talk philanthropy while asking for $20 for a beer to pay athletes $50 million a year. They have a responsibility to leave more behind than Rafael Palmeiro did,
That's
and
right. They can't
certainly
guarantee
more than
victory
Peter
every
Angelos
game, but
did.
they can do their very best to make it an enjoyable fan experience and an authentic one, and one where
And
it's
make it worth $20 a beer
that's right.
somehow. I don't know how they'll do that.
Yep.
I used to always get pissed at the prices at the movie theaters too. Greg Abel is here. Abel Communications. Alan McCallum will say it's free in his basement. I've enjoyed you. I always enjoy you. I'm sorry we lingered longer, but thank you for the visit.
Thank you, Nestor.
And if I offended anybody, as long as it made you think about something, I'm Nestor. We're WNST AM 1570 Towson, Baltimore. Back for more Baltimore Positive.